Hi students, I am your English teacher Rabia Atif Gill from St. John's High School. I am going to teach you a lesson from Oxford Reading Circle, Book 8. The chapter name is Romeo and Juliet. It is a story from the play written by William Shakespeare, a famous playwright, but adopted and published by Charles and Mary Lamb. You people will be thinking, who are Charles and Mary Lamb? So, they both were brother and sister, born in London, and jointly published tales from Shakespeare. This lesson is based on the play Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet is a tragic love story of a young man Romeo and a young woman Juliet. The characters you will find in this play are Romeo, young man of Montague's family; Juliet, young woman of Capulet family; Rosaline, niece of Lord Capulet; Benvolio, friend of Romeo; Mercutio, close friend to Romeo; Tybalt, Juliet's first cousin; Friar, friend of Romeo who supported the lovers. Let's start reading from the first page of the lesson, that is page number 60. But before reading the first paragraph, I would like to share the vocabulary words. Number 1, quarrel, that means fight. Kindred, that means one's family and relations. Fierce means ferocious. Ensued means arise. Retainers means the supporters or servants in the pay of person of high rank. Number 6, brawls, that means fight. Let's start reading the first paragraph. The two chief families in Verona were the rich Capulets and the Montagues. There had been an old quarrel between these families, which was grown to such a height that it extended to the remotest kindred, to the followers and retainers of both sides, insomuch that a servant of the house of Montague could not meet a servant of the house of Capulet, nor a Capulet encounter with a Montague by chance. But fierce words and sometimes bloodshed ensued, and frequent were the brawls. From such accidental meetings which disturbed the happy quiet of Verona's streets. It is a story of two rich families of Verona, the Lord Capulets and the Lord Montagues. They had a fight, and the fight was so fierce that they could not even pass through each other's streets. Let's read the second paragraph. Before that, again, we will go through the vocabulary words. Supper means night meal. Admired means appreciated. Disguise means dressed. Persuaded means arise. Old Lord Capulet made a great supper, to which many fair ladies and many noble guests were invited. All the admired beauties of Verona were present, and all were made welcome if they were not of the house of Montague. At this feast of Capulets, Rosaline, beloved of Romeo, son to the Lord Montague, was present, and though it was dangerous for a Montague to be seen in this assembly, yet Benvolio, a friend of Romeo, persuaded the young lord to go in the disguise of a mask, that he might see his Rosaline, and seeing her, compare her with some choice beauties of Verona, who, he said, would make him think his swan a crow. Romeo, for the love of Rosaline, was persuaded to go. Romeo was sincere and passionate, and one that lost his sleep for love. Benvolio wished to cure his friend of this love. In this para we see that Lord Capulet made a feast and invited all people of Verona except for the family of Montagues. Rosaline, a lady who was beloved of Romeo, was also invited, so to meet her Romeo was advised by his friend Benvolio to wear a mask and then go to attend the feast so no one could identify him. Let's go to the next page. Page number 61. Before reading the first para, I would like to again share the difficult words. Number 1, passionate. This means showing strong feelings. Trooping, together in large numbers. Uttered, make a sound with one's voice. Raged, be angry. Let's read. To this feast then, young Romeo with Benvolio and their friend Mercutio went masked. Old Capulet bid them welcome and said that he had worn a mask when he was young, and they fell to dancing. And Romeo was suddenly struck with the exceeding beauty of a lady who danced there, who seemed to him to teach the torches to burn bright. Like a snowy dove trooping with crows, he said, so richly did her beauty and perfections shine above her companions. While he uttered these praises, he was overheard by Tybalt, a nephew of Lord Capulet, who knew him by his voice to be Romeo. And this Tybalt, being fiery and passionate, could not endure that a Montague should come under cover of a mask to scorn at their event. And he stormed and raged, and would have struck young Romeo dead. But his uncle, the old Lord Capulet, would not allow him to do any injury at that time. Tybalt, forced to be patient against his will, restrained himself. In this para, we see that 3 people means 3 friends, that is Romeo, Benvolio and Mercutio, went with masks to the feast. During the dance, Romeo struck a beautiful lady and started admiring her, while a man named Tybalt recognized him by his voice that he was Romeo from the family of Montagues, and became too much angry that he wanted to kill him. But one of his uncles did not let him do harm to Romeo. This picture shows the Feast of Capulets, where Romeo and his friends were not invited, but they came to see Rosaline, the beloved of Romeo. Let's go to page number 62, and before reading the para on page 62, again I will share the vocabulary words. Number 1, presumed, suppose. Foe, enemy. Departed means left. Injury means wound. Discovered means found. Dissuade means discourage. Let's read page number 62, the first para. The dancing being done, Romeo watched the place where the lady stood, and under favor of his disguise, he presumed in the gentlest manner to take her by the hand. They exchanged but a few words before the lady was called away to her mother, and Romeo discovered that the beautiful lady was young Juliet, daughter and heir to the Lord Capulet, the great enemy of the Montagues, and that he had unknowingly engaged his heart to his foe. This troubled him, but it could not dissuade him from loving. As little rest had Juliet when she found that the gentleman that she had been talking with was Romeo and a Montague. In this para we find that Romeo found the place where the pretty lady with whom he got struck stood and went to meet her. They talked few words, and the lady's mother called her. That time Romeo came to know that her name was Juliet. Not only this he came to know, but also he came to know that she was from the Capulets family. Juliet also found that he was from Montagues. They both were troubled that they were in love, but actually they were not allowed to marry each other. This is the picture where Romeo met Juliet the first time. Now we will read from page 62, the last line. It being midnight, Romeo departed, but unable to stay away from the house where he had left his heart. He leaped the wall of an orchard which was at the back of Juliet's house. I will stop here to share a few words which are new for you. Number 1, orchard, that is the fruit garden. Number 2, wherefore, which means for what reason. Number 3, thou, which means you. Again, I will continue from page number 63, line number 2. Here he had not been long when Juliet appeared above at a window, through which her exceeding beauty seemed to break like the light of the sun in the east. She, thinking herself alone, called, O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father, and refuse thy name, for my sake, or if thou wilt not, be but my sworn love, and I no longer will be a Capulet. Romeo could no longer refrain. He bade her call him by whatever name she pleased. Juliet, alarmed to hear a man's voice in the garden, did not know who it was, but when he spoke again, she immediately knew him to be young Romeo. How came you into this place? Said Juliet, and by whose direction? Here we see that at midnight Romeo again came to Juliet's place, and where Juliet was already in his thoughts, she was talking to herself about him from the window, and she saw and got a call from her nurse for the bedtime. Let's again read from page number 63, the last line. Love directed, answered Romeo. This is the continuation of the last paragraph, so I will read the vocabulary words first. Confession means admission. Frankness means quality of being open and honest in speech or writing. Daybreak means dawn, the morning time. Hastily means quickly. Again, I will read page number 63, the first line which you will see on the screen. Love directed me, answered Romeo. Romeo had heard from her a confession of her love. So, with an honest frankness, she confirmed the truth of what he had before heard. From this conference, she was called away by her nurse, who thought it time for her to be in bed, for it was near to daybreak. But hastily returning, she said to Romeo that if his love was indeed honorable and his purpose marriage, she would send a messenger to him tomorrow to appoint a time for their marriage. Before going on the call of a nurse, Juliet told Romeo that she would send a messenger to appoint the time to get married. This means she was waiting for a call from Romeo that if Romeo was serious for her, so he should send a messenger to tell her at what time they are going to get married. Let's go to page number 64. Before started reading of the page number 64, I would like to share the new vocabulary words. Number 1, appoint means fix. Number 2, monastery, which means place where monks live under religious vows. Monks are actually those males who do not marry and they live on a separate place and they just keep themselves for the religious ceremonies and they are devoted to God. Number 3, wakefulness, not sleeping. Number 4, matrimonial, which means related to marriage. Number 5, alliance, which means union. Number 6, breach, that means split or crack. Number 7, consented, which means allow. Intent means aim. Hastened means to be quick. Impatient means irritated. Now I will start reading page number 64 from the first para. The day was breaking when they parted, and Romeo, who was too full of thoughts of that blessed meeting to allow him to sleep, instead of going home, bent his course to a monastery hard by to find Friar Lawrence. The good friar was already up at his devotions, but seeing young Romeo out so early, he guessed rightly that the cause of Romeo's wakefulness was love. A matrimonial alliance between young Juliet and Romeo might happily be the means of making up the long breach between the Capulets and the Montagues. The old man consented to join their hands in marriage. Now was Romeo blessed indeed, and Juliet, who knew his intent from a messenger, did not fail to be early at the cell of Friar Lawrence, where their hands were joined in holy marriage. The ceremony being over, Juliet hastened home, where she stayed impatient for the coming of night, at which time Romeo promised to come and meet her. In these paras, we find that Romeo went to one of his friends who was living in monastery and was a monk to take help for him to be in marriage with Juliet. So Romeo's friend in monastery was willing to join their hands in marriage. The marriage was done. Romeo and Juliet were married by the help of the Friar Lawrence. Now they both were very happy, and even Friar Lawrence was happy that by their marriage both the families who were in a great distress for a long time and they were having a fight because of the marriage of Romeo and Juliet, they could become close to each other. So Juliet went home with a great thought that at night time Romeo would come and meet her. Let's go to the last para of page number 64. Before reading it, again I'm reading the vocabulary words. Number 1, accusation, which means claim. Disgraceful, which means shameful. Appellation, which means title. Kinsman, which means relative. I am reading from page number 64, the last para. At noon, Romeo's friends Benvolio and Mercutio, walking through the streets of Verona, were met by a party of the Capulets with Tybalt at their head. He, seeing Mercutio, accused him bluntly of associating with Romeo, a Montague. Mercutio, who had as much fire in him as Tybalt, replied to his accusation with some sharpness, and a quarrel began. When Romeo himself passed that way, the fierce Tybalt turned from Mercutio to Romeo, and gave him the disgraceful appellation of villain. Romeo wished to avoid a quarrel with Tybalt because he was the kinsman of Juliet, and much beloved by her. Besides, his young Montague had never thoroughly entered into the family quarrel, being by nature wise and gentle. So he tried to reason with Tybalt, but Tybalt, who hated all Montagues as he hated hell, would hear no reason, but drew his weapon, and Mercutio, who knew not of Romeo's secret motive for desiring peace with Tybalt, provoked Tybalt, and Tybalt and Mercutio fought till Mercutio fell, receiving his death wounds. Now here in these paras we see that on the other side, while Romeo and Juliet got married, there was a fight, and the fight was between Tybalt, that was Juliet's cousin, and Romeo's friend, who was Mercutio. They both fight on the way, and because of the fight, or with the result of the fight, Tybalt killed Romeo's friend Mercutio. Now let's see in the next para what will happen when Romeo comes to know that his friend was killed by Tybalt. Although Romeo wanted to be in friendship with the family of Capulets because now he was a kinsman, you can say a relative or a husband to Juliet. So he wanted to be in friendship with the family of Capulets. But let's see what happens next. We are on page number 65. Before reading from page number 65, I would like to read the vocabulary words. Number 1, motive, which means reason. Slain, kill. Broil, hot. Determined, purposeful. Strictest, harsh. Offenders, wrongdoers. Fray, wear out. Exhorted, encourage. Pleaded, appeal. Pronounced, obvious. Sentence, judgment. Banished, exile. We are on page 65. I am going to read from line number 3. Mercutio being dead, Romeo kept his temper no longer, and they fought till Tybalt was slain. The news of this deadly broil quickly brought a crowd to the spot, and among them the old Lord Capulet and Montague with their wives, and soon after arrived the prince himself, who being related to Mercutio, whom Tybalt had slain, came determined to put the law in strictest force against those who should be found to be offenders. Benvolio was commanded by the prince to relate the origin of the fray, which he did, keeping as near the truth as he could without injury to Romeo. Lady Capulet, with extreme grief for the loss of Tybalt, exhorted the prince to do strict justice upon his murderer. Thus she pleaded against her new son-in-law, but she knew not yet that he was Juliet's husband. On the other hand was Lady Montague pleading for her child's life. The prince, unmoved by the passionate exclamations of these women, pronounced his sentence and banished Romeo from Verona. In this para, we see that while Romeo saw that his friend Mercutio was killed by Tybalt, he became so angry and so fierce that he started fighting Tybalt. And as a result, Tybalt was also killed. He was murdered actually by Romeo. By hearing all this, all the people got gathered on the spot, which include the Lord Capulet and the Lord Montague with their wives, and they all were there on the spot, and they got very surprised. So the Lord Montague's wife was pleading for her son's life, that he should be forgiven, and the Lord Capulet's wife was pleading that justice would be given for the murder of Tybalt, who was to be the husband of her daughter. But she did not know that Romeo was already got married with Juliet. So the prince himself, who was also close to Mercutio, has to give justice, and he banished Romeo from Verona. Banish means Romeo was exiled from Verona because he was considered to be the murderer of Tybalt. Today we will keep up till here. Let's look your home task. 3 questions are given, and you have to do these questions in your literature copy. Number 1. What shape did the feud between the two families of Verona take? Again I will read. What shape did the feud between the two families of Verona take? The answer you will find on page number 60. Question number 2 is, what was Romeo's purpose in going to the ball? Again I will read. What was Romeo's purpose in going to the ball? The answer you will find on page number 60. And question number 3 is, how did Romeo come to be banished from Verona? Question number 3 is, how did Romeo come to be banished from Verona? The answer to this question you will find on page number 65. One note for you students, and that is, all the work must be done in literature copy. Whatever the work is given from the first lesson till today, you have to do that in your literature copy because marks will be given. Thank you, and God bless you all.